I'm planning on making the trip to Canton when he goes in.
Oh, so are we. So are we. All right, guys and girls, boys and girls, and children of all ages, welcome to Sean drinking a Powerade like he's John Belushi when they cleaned out the dorm in the fraternity house. They took the bar. Welcome, guys, to Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich. My partner, Sean Williams, and our special guest tonight, Matt Ulrich. Sean.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm kicking, man. I'm just not kicking as high as I was a day ago, but not as high as I will be kicking by the weekend. We want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Welcome you guys to Under the Dome podcast, a fan-based show that is, wow, how do we describe ourselves? We're fan-related, but we're quite informative. Would that be apropos?
Description I was just thinking of.
Well,
got some bills to pay.
Yeah. That joke just fell down.
Yeah.
Throw it to the side. We want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring our podcast and invite you guys to check out all the other shows that they provide. And we invite you guys to subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube. We love to hear from you guys. You can reach us on our Facebook page at Under the Dome Podcast or on Twitter at Under the Dome PO1. All one word. We invite any input that you guys might have. And let me see. I'll let you introduce our special guest tonight.
Not really much of an introduction. I've known him for 22 years. It's my son, Matt. He is a college student at my Lafayette. Matt, how you doing tonight?
Doing all right. I'm just kind of thankful Lafayette didn't lose any power because we did get hit by a pretty bad thunderstorm all day today.
Yeah, it rained pretty good here, too, for a little while. So let's talk a little bit about the OTAs. They're going to wrap up this Thursday. Is the 14th. Those are actually going to be open to the public. So what we've seen so far is basically every Thursday for the past 3 weeks, and this week is the last, media in for a little while, and they got to see the guys. Live discussion. Great. JT quarterback would look like. His head swimming. He's trying to master the playbook and make good decisions. So he is, of course, making mistakes out there. It's what you would expect for a guy like that. I mean, it's not a knock on his talent, not a knock on his ability. It is what you the verb. So, you know, that's what you're going to see, you know. And we haven't heard anything on Savage. Cameron Meredith, the restricted free agent we signed, kind of going through practice on his own. You're not really seeing him do a whole lot in team drills. So it's this mini camp to me is going to kind of be more of a culmination of everything that we've kind of been teased about in these Thursday media reports of training camp. How do you guys see this playing out? Matt, how about you first?
Well, I'm not really taking anything seriously when it comes to minicamp because I don't know what really to expect. I want to see the pads on first, basically. And if I have to see one more piece about Dion Yelder, like doing well or being the mystery tight end, I think I'm going to drink myself to death.
I feel the same way, only mine is Taysom Hill. Now, I get that the kid is coming along and he's doing all of this stuff and he's shining and blah, 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 blah. You go back 5, maybe 6 months, the kid's shagging kicks and punts.
Yeah.
Put the pads on. Show me what you can do. Make that third and long pass over the middle to Benjamin Watson or Dion Yelder. Make some plays. Show me what you got, and then I'm going to be excited. Don't get me wrong, guys. I love what I do following this team on a weekly basis. Keeping track of what we're doing in free agency and the draft, in OTAs, in mini camps. I really like doing all of that, but I'm so sick of hearing all of this. To use a euphemism, fake news. I'm tired of all of these false narratives. People are throwing poo-poo on the wall and seeing what sticks, and it has absolutely nothing to do with September and October football.
Yeah, I don't even bother reading opinion pieces. I'm just like, you know what? Root for him if you want. I'm waiting for the pads to come on. Let me know when it's late July.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what it is. It's what you're seeing right now is you're seeing a lot of people want the future to be now, and they're just excited to talk about Saints football. And so all the young kids are going to get all the interest and all the attention. We'll find out come August, in July and August. Really out. Here's a guy that we need to talk a little bit about, Cameron Meredith. Where does he fit in this offense? A whole mini camp. But what I wanted to talk about was where do you see Cameron Meredith's role go in this offense? Where does he fit in with Michael Thomas and Ted Ginn Jr.? Go ahead, Sean.
Well, as far as Meredith goes, I think it's kind of he's, for lack of a better way of putting it, and I hope I'm not too far off base in this assumption here. I think that Meredith very easily could be the linchpin. And by that, I mean that going into this next season with the past season in focus, you had basically two echelons of the receiving corps. You had your Michael Thomas, which he continues to amaze on a weekly basis. You had your Ted Ginn Jr., which, while he had a career year last year, it wasn't by any means a consistent week-by-week progression that you would like to see from a franchise player, so to speak. And now I'm not taking anything away from Ted Ginn. There's nobody more blown away by the contribution that Ginn made to the Saints roster a year ago than I am. And as I've done many times since then, I apologize publicly to Ted Ginn for my reaction when we signed him, because he did absolutely nothing but completely amaze on every opportunity that he had. Someone that had the history of having stone hands, and I want to say by my count he dropped maybe 2 or 3 passes over 16 games last year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But the noticeable absence in this offense a year ago was for lack of a better term to use, the Willie Snead role, the number 2, number 3, the slot guy that's going to step up big on third downs. And you're talking about a guy in Willie Snead that went from 1,900 plus yards receiving 2 years ago to last year catching, I think, maybe 5 passes. And when you have someone that contributes that much one year and falls off that far the following year, that leaves a hole in your offense, because your offense is predicated on all these pieces fitting together and doing what they do. And if Meredith is supposed to fall in there and be that number 2 guy, and Ginn is supposed to take a step back and fill in that number 3 spot, or vice versa, if Ginn is going to be that man right behind Michael Thomas on the chart, and Meredith is supposed to, our immediate future is going to have to run through him in some way for this offense to be as successful as it's drawn up to be. Excuse me.
Okay, Matt.
What about you, Matt?
Well, I do expect Meredith to basically be the tall slot guy, because Thomas is your pretty much go over the middle, catch a pass, and do a little more. You got Ginn, who's basically stretch the field and create a big play. And I think that's also going to be what our rookie wide receiver Traquan Smith is also going to be asked to do: stretch the field and be our big play guy. So now you're basically asking Meredith, okay, since we don't have a reliable receiving tight end, you kind of need to convert third downs. You're going to need to basically be our slots, and we'll see what we can do from there, basically.
Well, let me ask you this, Matt. Moving forward into the future, as we all know, we've completely severed the ties with the project that was Coby Fleener.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like the heir apparent to that starting tight end role is going to be the returning Ben Watson. I think he's been in Baltimore for two seasons.
2 seasons. Well, really 1 season, because he got hurt in 2016, ruptured Achilles.
Yeah. Moving forward, do you think that Ben Watson is going to be able to step into this Saints offense like he never missed a beat? And conversely, do you think that he is going to be as big a contributor to the Saints offense as he was to the Ravens offense? And even more than that, be the same contributor that he was 3 years ago for New Orleans?
I don't think he's going to be as big of a contributor as he was in 2015. He's not only older, but the Saints just have a little more weapons than they did back in 2015, because back in 2015, you just had a lot of question marks outside of Brandon Cook. You had Marcus Colston was declining, and you didn't know what you were getting from Willie Snead or Brandon Coleman, who both made the team. You were just kind of riding on the heels, and all of a sudden Ben Watson just comes in and steps up. His role is going to be primarily be the emergency third down converter and borderline red zone finisher. But his role is going to be reduced, probably get ready, probably also teach some of these younger players, step up. But I'm not expecting much. Probably maybe 30 passes at least, with maybe 500 yards receiving.
Well, I don't think that's going to be – I don't know the term to use here. I don't think that's going to be expecting too little out of him, because as we saw a year ago, the scope of this offense has changed in such a way that I don't think that Michael Thomas, Willie Snead, or excuse me, I'm sorry, Ted Ginn Jr. misspoke. Uh, Benjamin Watson. I don't think that this receiving core in the 2018 version of the New Orleans Saints has to be nearly what it had to be, say 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, before you had that balanced rushing attack that the Saints put on the field a year ago.
Yeah.
Wait for me. The Mr. Watson can just be just another Westing. You know, don't get me wrong. Breeze trusts Watson, so you know you're going to get that instant chemistry. But Michael Thomas is the go-to guy. Michael Thomas is who this offense funnels through. Ted Ginn Jr. is going to kind of take more of a Devery Henderson role than you know what he did even last year. And Cameron Meredith, you end up being in the offense. A guy who's got the size and the speed we want. And Watson, Thomas, Mara to play Juan Smith, if to be that guy who is going all those conversions, more of a third down by committee, which is actually very good for the Saints because it makes them that much harder to defend. Watson's going to be a reliable target. I think Cameron Meredith is going to be a huge target for him. We already know what Michael Thomas can do. We've seen what Ted Ginn can do, which, you know, you now have added two reliable receivers in replacing Snead and Kobe Fleener, who were not reliable receivers. So that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot more of receiving by committee. Thomas is going to get all his passes, but you're going to see a lot more among the other receivers all making up, you know, where there's going to be games where they're going to be huge and there going to be games where they hardly catch anything at all.
I don't think that's too far off base. I agree with that. This offense a year ago, as compared to seasons past, I hate to keep alluding to it, but that 3-year stretch of 7 and 9 seasons, the Saints were so receiving needy in their offensive approach that last year, you know, the balanced rushing attack of Ingram and Kamara was such a sigh of relief to everyone. I just, and moving forward, you know, I know that Drew Brees created the universe and it all revolves around him and all of that stuff that you see in these Facebook chat groups. But looking at it legitimately, the only undefeated ever in the history of the world is Father Time. And you got to be realistic.
Well,
Drew Brees is a 39-year-old quarterback.
That and the 72 Dolphins.
Exactly. You're Drew Brees is 39 years old, and every Saints fan shudders at the mere suggestion of life after Brees, but sooner or later that's going to come. And if you keep burying your head in the sand and pretending like it's he's going to defy time until, you know, sometime in the future, you're going to have a very rude awakening. You know the yardstick that people measure quarterbacks in the NFL by here lately is Peyton Manning, and you look at the end of his career and how quickly that came. Uh, and being the fan of Breeze that I am, I hope that it doesn't happen that way with him. I really do. But the likelihood that it very easily could happen is there.
Yeah. Well, you know, seems to outwork Drew Brees to perfect his craft. And yes, Father Time is undefeated, but you know, when we talk, could lose strength season. Tom Brady's 41. You know, Tom Brady is still playing at an elite level as well. So you've got two athletes in Breeze and Brady, both who are playing at such a level that it's incomprehensible that you can remember or think of another 40-year-old being able to play and do the things that they can do. They are playing like someone in their mid-30s still. Yes, the drop-off happen. The drop-off will be sudden. The drop-off will be severe. But we haven't seen even an indication of this. Like, you know, people pointed out, you watch that Carolina Panthers playoff game. Drew Brees rolls out to his right, throws setting his feet all on 40 yards downfield to Michael Thomas for a big play. And you could just watch that play over and over and over again. There are 20-something-year-old quarterbacks who can't make that throw. You know, so it's – I don't know. But I don't know if Dr. Andrew threw a bionic legs that enable him to do the things that he is doing at his age. I mean, he is showing little to no drop off in his ability. And while I'm aware that we have to get a quarterback for the future, I'm also very confident that Brees is still going to be there for a couple more seasons at least, playing at a high level. So you're kind of in that limbo land. So the best thing you can do is take advantage, give him the weapons he needs to make that last run, win that last championship. So I don't know. I understand what you're saying, Sean, and I agree with you. But at the same time, there's something almost supernatural about Drew. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I can see that, and I don't dispute that whatsoever. He has already defied the laws of physics, nature. He's superseded every expectation ever placed on him. And I'm so thankful that he's done it for the New Orleans Saints.
Absolutely.
Well, looking at the other side of the coin, it's been put forth that maybe the biggest acquisition in the free agent market by the New Orleans Saints this entire offseason was the acquisition of former Jets linebacker Demario Davis. Let me ask you this. Is the addition of Davis going to yield the change that the Saints have been looking for so long? Since basically, I guess, and you could probably correct me on this, they have been looking for a Davis type since Jonathan Vilma retired.
At least.
Well, actually,
Matt,
2 seasons before Vilma retired, when his knees retired.
Mm-hmm. Matt, give us your impression of Demario Davis. What do you think I know where you're going with this, but Matt and I both are big airplane fans, so there's that joke that's right there.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say it.
I'm sorry, I don't do impressions. I just commentate.
All right.
And see, I'm probably the only one listening that knows what airplane you're talking about.
Go ahead and talk. Exactly. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, when they signed Demario Davis, I was actually a big fan of that signing. I saw he checked off these boxes. He was very athletic. He really emerged as a better leader on the team. I thought the Jets defense really did listen to him well when they really needed him most. And when I finally got some film on him, he did one thing very, very well. He flowed to the ball very well. He was always near the play. I thought that's definitely what we needed. And then there was the athleticism box. I think probably Canal Street Chronicles writer John Sigler really got me on this too. At the Saints linebacker core really need that speed, that athleticism, with all facing off against Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Freeman, Coleman in Atlanta. Then you got whoever the heck's going to be the running back in Tampa. I think they're still playing that rushing roulette right now. But I think the rival Davis, it really kind of helps even the playing field out just a little bit.
With Davis and Sean, this is true. This is probably the most athletic linebacker we've gotten since Vilma. The question for me is, where is he going to play? Is he going to play in the middle as the Mike? Is he going to play the weak side? Is he going to play the strong side? Or are we going to see kind of a shuffling of linebackers where, much like the receiving core, they almost all play every position? You might see Klein in the middle sometimes based on the formation. You might see Davis in the middle. You might see Davis on the weak side. You might see, Manti Te'o in the middle and David. I think I'm really curious how they use his athleticism. How do you see this, Sean?
I think that it's probably going to be dependent on the health of guys like Teo, Anzalone, those guys that were either missing or nicked up at the end of the season last year. It's going to depend on exactly what you have to work with as to how you use them. To me, going into this offseason, it wasn't so much a quality starter that was concerning at linebacker as it was the concern of having quality depth. Because once Anzalone went down, and who else was it?
Klein.
Yeah, and Klein. Once those two guys went down, we were basically exposed as being very, very thin at linebacker. And the quality of the depth was a major issue going down the last quarter of the season stretch there. The play of the linebackers could have made a stark difference in probably 2 of the last 4 games, I'll say. They could have gone either way. And if you're going to bring Demario Davis in, regardless of where you play him, you still have the quality of an Anzalone, of a Klein, of a, don't forget, Robertson. Very, very talented player. You've got all these guys that are still very, very good at what they do, and you want to fully utilize that. But what do you have behind them? Because as we know, linebacker is probably the most violent position on the field in the National Football League, and injuries are going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking, I think Teo and Robinson did fine when they had to step up after Klein went down, but I could just tell like Peyton and Dennis Allen had a kind of just had a bad feeling to go when they had to put in Michael Marty in. I think I think that was when they went, yeah, we're gonna have to beef up that position because Washington against the Redskins and having to chase Vern Davis, that's just like yeah, that thing's gonna happen.
You saw when you had Michael Marty out there, when you had Manti Robertson, you saw the limitation of the speed of those players. They were not good. They couldn't cover tight ends. They had a hard time flowing to the ball carrier for stretch running plays, and that's where the Redskins were having some success. That's where the Vikings were having success early in the playoff game. That's that's where Davis is really needing was when he was injured. That's what he was missing, and even Klein to an extent, you were missing some of that. They want intelligent linebackers, but they also want fast linebackers, and that's why I think you're going to see a lot more cross training with these guys to get them to play in various positions, to also keep these linebackers fresh, rotate them as much as possible. Get the best players on the field for whatever play is coming up. And you're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff, I think, this year. I think you're going to see a lot of guys shuffling in and out on defense like you saw people shuffling in and out on offense, because we haven't even talked about Kurt Coleman and his role when the Saints go to 3 safety. So obviously a linebacker comes out in those formations too. So you may have a situation where you got Coleman out there, you've got Davis. Who knows? We may see even more moves after the first couple cuts happen in camp, where they grab somebody off of somebody else's roster to bring in to upgrade depth on special teams. So, I think it's going to be a very fluid position, but I think Davis figures prominently as a 3-down linebacker in almost every pattern of play. And that's huge, because that was what y'all were just talking about with Michael Marty and with Manti Te'o. That's what was missing in those games. Once Klein was gone, once Anzalone was gone, and the limitations you had with a guy like a Manti Te'o, who's really a 2-down linebacker, and Craig Robertson, who is a ideal swing linebacker who can play all 3 positions, but is not athletic enough and float to the ball carrier for stretch running plays.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking, while we're on the topic of linebackers, I actually found an article on CBSSports.com under post June 1st trade candidates, and they list Saints linebacker A.J. Klein.
Mm-hmm.
How the Saints have so much depth at linebacker and to free up the cap space. So I don't think even Loomis cares about cap space right now. We're thinking about, and they let's say trading him to the Bills, who are a linebacker needy team.
You just don't have enough. You don't have enough depth to afford to trading. Yeah. I could be wrong.
Well,
I think it would force to put someone at middle linebacker. It would be someone at the Sam, because I think Klein's going to stay at Sam like he was last season, and you're going to be forced to put someone at Sam, either Stupar or Robertson, or kick Davis to Sam and put Teo and Mike.
Well, and again, I think that the issue with that is people are looking at the Saints linebackers like, okay, this is your middle linebacker, this is your strong side linebacker, this is your weak side linebacker, here's your 3 starters, that's it. Not what we just talked about with the multiple positions you're playing and shifting players left and right. they're not thinking with the Saints. I think that's how you have to think, that it's going to be constant changing players, rotating guys in and out. So this is your starting lineup, but this is not necessarily who you're going to see on the third play from scrimmage. You're going to see a whole totally different 11 guy, just depending on the situation. So,
Matt, when you read that article, I was taken back to last week, the movie quote that we had from the Untouchables. Whoever the writer of that article is, I want to know his address. I want him dead.
You okay, Sean?
Yeah, did I freeze up?
No, I thought you were going to continue speaking and all.
No. I made a bad joke and then thought better of it. Anyway, moving on to the analysis that we're going to conclude tonight, the analysis of the upcoming season with the last quarter of the schedule, beginning with a Sunday, December 9th trip to the sunny state of Florida to face the Buccaneers for a high noon showdown. What say you, Mr. Ulrich? Or, excuse me, the elder Mr. Ulrich?
This is going to be this is now the game where you just run through the gauntlet. This is where you want to sew up that division so you can get in the playoffs if you've done that well. Get that first round bye. Division, get yourself in the best possible position. So you got to win this game. Like I said last week, you can't do any worse than 4-2 in the division and still expect to win it. So this is a must win. You have to sweep at least two teams, and the Bucs are one of them, and the Panthers, we hope, is the other one, where you at least split with Atlanta. Because I think with Atlanta, it's going to be tough to sweep them. I don't think it'll be as tough to sweep the Bucs, but it's going to be tough to sweep them, the Falcons. So, this is a game we win, especially coming off this tough part of the schedule we just finished. Matt, how about you?
I feel like we might have to battle the elements, because if it rains in Tampa,
which it always does,
it's going to be to our big disadvantage. And because it just feels like, if it's a sunny day in Tampa, things are better for us. Things just go well. But if it's sloppy, it's rainy, it just looks like, you don't want to be outside. Things just go wrong for us each and every time.
Well, we've actually won more games in Tampa than we have at home against the Bucs. That's what's kind of funny.
That's the running narrative every year when we play Tampa Bay. In the Dome, we'll play close and lose it at the end. In Tampa, we either run away with it or complete opposite of what I just mentioned. We play it close and then pull it out with a field goal at the end.
Yeah. Yep. So to me, this is a must-win. Especially if we lose that first game of the season, then all the pressure is on us to win this game. If we have a bad November where we are teetering, these next 4 games, getting with again, underestimating on not only your divisional opponents, but you can possibly gain ground in the NFC with whoever team you're competing against for a playoff spot. So, So the following week, we play Carolina Panthers in Carolina on Monday Night Football, December 17th. Panthers. They're not too happy with the broom and being swept and 3 straight wins this past year. This will be the first crack the Panthers have at us. This is on their home field, Monday Night Football. You know they're coming to play. How do you see this game playing out?
Matt?
Well, like I said about Tampa, it's going to have to be a battle of the elements because I'm going to expect that it's going to snow there. And when was the last time the Saints even played a snow game? That's going to be
Philadelphia.
Philly. That's what I thought.
Playoff game in Philly. 13. That's what I said.
13. Yeah.
Yeah. But I expect the Panthers to come out like that person that got wrongly convicted in prison, just working out and seeing a Saints picture with knives or friggin' darts all around him. P.O. just like, can't believe you beat us 3 times. 3 times. Just holding this awful grudge. That's just nonstop being P.O. the entire time.
Well, you don't like getting slapped in the face. All you got to do is stop it. You know?
Yeah.
And I say that as a joke. I have the utmost respect. Probably, truth be told, I have more respect for our divisional opponents than I do for the entire rest of the league combined. I've made no two bones about the fact that I think that the NFC South is probably the most competitive division in all of football, bar none. Period. End of story. I don't care who wins the Super Bowl. That means very little to me when it comes to in-your-face, smash-mouth, last man standing football. It's the NFC South. You look over the last 3 years, three different division champions, and 2 Super Bowl representatives. How'd that turn out? But anyway, the Bucks game, I don't really. I'm not going to say it's unimportant, and Big Gene, please forgive me. I don't think it's as important as it's going to be coming out on that Monday night game in Carolina to come out early, set the tone, and dictate the pace of that ball game. Because if you don't, Carolina's going to be more than happy to slap you right in the mouth and embarrass you on nationwide TV on ESPN.
Yeah, and what I was referencing was an old DirecTV commercial where I think the tagline is, don't get your house blown up. Cause I think my dad will know what I'm talking about, but it is pretty funny.
Well, I'm just looking at the Carolina Panthers schedule. Right before they play us, they play the Bucks on December 2nd, and then they play the Cleveland Browns. Then they've got us and Atlanta. So if Carolina, the bulk of their hard games are in the beginning of the season, it's not a nightmare. They play the Eagles on the 21st. They play the Ravens on the 28th of October. And then after that, they've got Bucks. They play actually at home, not in Seattle. So, if Carolina kind of gets on a run in November, then these and the Falcons. These are games where the Panthers are thinking we can win division. We can put this division away because we have to play against. We play the Saints twice. We can really get some distance between them. So yeah, that's another critical game, another must-win game, especially on the road in Carolina. It's the same old story. You've got to go after Cam Newton and be bad Cam, make him cost the Panthers the game, which that has traditionally been our formulas for success, except for that playoff game. Bad Cam showed up in both games. And I think if we can force that again, we can get some turnovers against the Panthers. We can steal that win pretty easily.
But as you know, anytime that we face the Carolina Panthers, if we don't put that game away and decide it by the beginning of the fourth quarter, the middle of the fourth quarter at the latest, as long as we allow them to keep hanging around, it's always up for grabs.
Yeah. Yep. And believe me, they're looking at that footage from the game from the again when they shut him down. That's again why I think we can expose the Carolina secondary. Kurt Coleman's going to be some help for us. It's going to be a good matchup. Okay, so the following week, then we play Steelers. Who knows what kind of Steelers game you're going to get? We're playing in a dome, so we don't have to worry about the terrible towels. We don't have to worry about the elements that you would get at Heinz Field. Sean, how do you see this game, Steelers?
Well, I think it's going to be determined a lot by exactly what the rest of the season holds for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that at least in my mind, the jury is still out. Hello?
Yeah, that's a problem with his internet, apparently. It's been happening the entire broadcast.
Mine?
I'm still here.
No.
I'm still here.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that at least in my mind, the jury is still out on exactly what kind of team the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be able to field. Are you going to get that juggernaut of a few years ago when Ben Roethlisberger could do no wrong and your running attack was just making mincemeat of everybody, and Antonio Brown could easily go over 1,000 yards every game, which I can't see that happening. But unfortunately, all those tools are still there. I don't think it's going to be nearly as much of a case as the last time that the Steelers rolled into the Superdome, which was a preseason game, I think 2 seasons ago. And it was a very, very close game, and then they kicked off. I don't remember that game ever even being close at all throughout the entirety of the ordeal, and it got to the point where it was actually painful to watch, even by preseason standards. Can we beat Pittsburgh? Well, that's going to remain to be seen, because the strategic locating of this game being week 16 of a 17-week schedule, you have no way of knowing exactly what you're going to have left by that point of the season. And conversely, you don't know exactly what Pittsburgh's going to have left either. But all things being equal, should both teams be firing on all cylinders, I think it should make for a very, very good matchup.
I expect one of two things in the game against Pittsburgh. One, it's going to be a straight-up shootout where touchdowns are just going to be scored, and you can expect like a 63-56 game, just like no defense whatsoever. Or two, one-sided domination for the Saints, and here's why. I don't trust Pittsburgh's defense. They couldn't even stop Bortles in the playoffs. That should put something in perspective, and they didn't really improve that much on defense. And I think the key will be getting pressure on Big Ben. If Davenport, Rankins, Ayamada, and Cam Jordan can all get pressure without much blitzing, it's going to be a one-sided affair the entire time. But if Ben Roethlisberger is able to sit back, Le'Veon Bell is able to get a lot of run lanes and cruise to touchdown after touchdown, it's going to be a shootout with no real clear winner.
I don't think it'll be a shootout. I kind of agree with you, Sean. I think it's going to definitely determine Hucks come December. And when I watched that game, Matt referenced the against the Jaguars. I just think I don't think much of this coach anymore. At the
Tomlin.
I think he's frozen.
I think he saw team also is their own hype. It was due out there. They think teams just going to.
My dad keeps freezing.
Up because I'm sorry. Am I freezing on you guys?
Yeah,
intermittently
too.
Great. Okay, because it shows good on my end, but that's about right. Anyway, sum it all up. I think because I think the Steelers have one foot in the grave by this point of the season. And yeah, they might make the playoffs because they don't think this is going to be a Super Bowl caliber team they're matching up against. I think, especially on the road, I think this is a hard matchup for the Steelers. I think the Saints are a better team.
I tend to agree with that. With the, you could make the argument that Pittsburgh could have maybe with Le'Veon Bell possibly a slight advantage in the on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, I see absolutely as Matt alluded to, they couldn't even stop the Jaguars in the playoff game. And you look on the Saints defense, and all they've done is restock, reload, and I see no reason on paper, 9 months out, why the Saints shouldn't win this game.
Which takes us to the last game of the rematch with Carolina in New Orleans. This game is probably going to be for all the marbles.
Yep.
I
fully expect this game to be for the division title.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. Matt, how do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, if it's between like Saints Panthers for the division, it might be, or if Panthers are just not or have already been eliminated from the playoffs, and it's between the Saints and the Falcons for a division, I expect the Saints to just come in there and not give up an inch. But it's all going to depend how the season unfolds for the Saints and on how we execute and how we come out of the gate.
I agree.
I'm gonna take the stance that let's assume it's gonna be like last year, okay? And the Saints, the Falcons, and the Panthers are all fighting for that division title. And you've got the Saints beating the Panthers in week 14. Then the Panthers play the Falcons. Okay, so now the Panthers know their playoff lives are at stake. The Falcons know their playoff. It's a possibility that they both win the last week of the season. That one of those teams, both those teams can make the playoffs. So I think it's going to be a bloodbath for Carolina in Carolina against us on Monday Night Football. It's going to be just as bad of a bloodbath against the Falcons, who, you know, will also be fighting with a possibility of winning that division, but at the same time, you know, fighting. You know, it's a possibility that the Falcons lose their last 3 games. They could miss the playoffs entirely. So that's another. So then it where, you know, a desperate Carolina team, let's assume they win against Atlanta but lose to us. You've got a desperate Carolina team coming in, maybe trying to get that one last shot at winning the division. So I think this is going to be a very physical game. It's why I believe getting that first and second seed is so important, because that Carolina game, playing that last game of the season, those two, if we and the Panthers are both fighting for, you know, the division title or playoff lives, we're going to be a team going into wild card weekend, assuming both teams win, you know, win a playoff spot. That's just, it's just going to be such a physical game. And that's how I see that game playing out. I see us winning, of course, but I see it as a physical game.
Well, let me ask you guys, you guys both, and I don't want to get into a league-wide thing nearly just yet, but as far as the NFC South goes, Riverboat Ron in Carolina, Dan Quinn in Atlanta. Well, let me step back. With the Atlanta Falcons, you saw Dan Quinn come in, make the Super Bowl, and then not. You saw Riverboat Ron get to the Super Bowl and then fail miserably the 2 seasons following. Is there any coach in the NFC South that is on the hot seat at this point?
Who do you see?
I'm sorry, I wasn't.
What NFC South coach do you see on the hot seat?
Ron Rivera, immediate. Ron Rivera. I think if Ron Rivera does not make the playoffs this season, he is going to get fired. Because so far, since 2013, the Panthers have had this predictable record. Every odd year, it's been he has a good season, he makes the playoffs. But when it comes to even, they've had a losing record. 2013, they went 13-3, made it. 2014, he went 7-8-1, only made it because NFC South struggled entirely. 2015, he went 15-1 and made the Super Bowl. 2016, he went 6-10. 2017, he went 11-5. What's going to happen in 2018? Are they going to continue the hot streak and go and make the playoffs, or are they going to fall under 500 and miss it?
And another thing that you might want to consider in that equation is the fact that by the time the season starts, they will be under new ownership as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that too. But I think it's gonna take a little bit. But I think just, you know, with the repeated pattern, I think fans are gonna say, you know what, new slate, get us a new coach. We want to consistently win, not expect, you know, win lose every season.
Well, and I think that's the key. The new ownership comes in. New owner will probably be interested in bringing in his own people, his own general manager, his own coach. So unless Ron Rivera does have a great season where they are playing for the divisional title, you know, well into December, and have a realistic shot of making the playoffs, I can see him going. The other coach I can see really being in trouble is the Tampa coach.
Cutter. Dirk Cutter. To be totally honest with you, I was beyond shocked that he didn't get fired last year.
Nate.
Yeah, I was too.
I think they just say, you know what, it's just an off season. Let's just ride with you one more time.
Well, you know, as we've pointed out sporadically over the course of the season last year, as we as Saints fans know all too well, there is an effect that it has, and people don't realize the internal effect, the very foundational effect that a hurricane hitting at the beginning of your season and devastating your city, what kind of effect that can have on that season's success. And that's what you saw in Tampa a year ago. I picked Tampa to win the division a year ago.
I think a lot of people hyped up Tampa because of how many people they got, and it was just, you know, now is their time, and everyone was just hyping them up, and they never lived up to it.
You know, and the other thing with Tampa is it's always seems to be this is going to be their year. This is going to be their year. To me, if Dirk Cutter doesn't at least make the playoffs, he's going to go because the fan base is so apathetic right now. You know, fans aren't showing up to the games, and they keep hyping this team. They keep bringing in names. They keep making big draft moves and things like that. But when the product shows up in the field, for whatever reason, it goes bad. So, which I'm not complaining. As a Saints fan, I'm not complaining. You know, I don't mind Tampa playing like crap. But I think if Jameis Winston continues his up and down career, you know, the fans will get frustrated because they see too much of Freeman in him with that kind of performance. If the Tampa defense isn't getting better, you know, they're going to get frustrated with that. They expect big plays out of this offense. They're not getting that. You know, they're just going to want a clean slate, and they're going to want the team to be blown up and start all over again, once again, to try and generate more excitement for Tampa, because that's they've got the Dungy years and they've got a bit of the Gruden years as their benchmark now. You know, that's what they expect to see out of a Tampa team. And they have been getting an inferior product year after year after year. You can only deal with that so much.
Well, you know, I was on the Buck What You Heard podcast a couple of month and a half, 2 months ago. And they asked me a question that really kind of surprised. Gene asked me a question that really sort of surprised me because no one's ever asked me that before. He asked me, he said, you know, you following the Saints and doing these pregame analysis, what's the most, the thing that stood out to you the most that, oh, this is what we have to deal with, what we have to stop? And without hesitation, I said, it's always been the Tampa Bay defense. Gerald McCoy, Levante David, every time Drew Brees plays against the Buccaneers in the Superdome, he throws 3 picks. It's always been the defense that has concerned me the most. And that floored them. They didn't know how they I don't think that they expected that response from me. But I mean, it's always interesting to me to see how a divisional foe sees you as opposed to how you see them.
I think he froze.
Well, I'm we're running out of time now, so
and that's right.
He's frozen. Yeah,
Matt, how can everybody follow you and your analysis and everything, and find out your GPA at ULLLLL? I'm sorry, that's the tech in me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. They can follow me on NFL Ulrich 17. That's spelled ULRICH. And I want to give one quick message and kind of a solemn news about legend that unfortunately passed away yesterday afternoon, Dwight Clark, who fortunately lost his battle with ALS. Just want to give a quick mention to him. I never really saw him play, but he was always immortalized by the catch that he made against Dallas. It's always sad to see such a legend who's immortalized forever.
Right. Yeah,
that is probably, if you look back over the entire long and colorful history of the National Football League, that is probably one of the most iconic plays ever in the history of the NFL is the catch. I apologize. I'm remiss. We were gonna acknowledge this earlier in the show, and I got sidetracked and lost sight of it and everything, and I apologize for that. But as I posted on Facebook yesterday, the best that any NFL player can hope for is to, at some point in their career, be bigger than the game. And Dwight Clark succeeded at that. Rest in peace. Thoughts and prayers go out to you, your family, your wife, your kids. You will always be remembered as bigger than the game.
Yeah, that play was called Sprint Right On. For those of you who have watched the Saints Super Bowl as many times as I have, the 2-point conversion play is almost the exact same play. The difference is, instead of going to the back of the end zone to the receiver in the back of the end zone, Drew Brees actually goes to the short receiver, who was Lance Moore, but it's still the same basic offensive play. He is rolling out to the right. You have multiple receiver targets, and that's what looking for was the underneath pass. You can see, for those of you who know your NFL history, I believe that is Everson Walls from the Cowboys, defensive back, who is trailing Dwight Clark on that play. And he doesn't jump is because he thought Montana was throwing it away. And he was floored that Clark got up that high to get that ball because he thought it was a throwaway play. And one last thing about that game, I've seen the actual replay of the game. The catch by Clark is historic. But there's a tackle later on in the game that made a way to get them in field goal range, and the Cowboys could have won that game. But it's either Wright or Lott. I don't remember which one is it.
Ronnie Lott
grabs a bit of jersey on Pearson and pulls him down just to make the Cowboys use their last time out and keep him out of field goal range. That was a huge, huge play. People think the catch was the end of the game. It wasn't. Just like the drive was not the last play of the game. It just forced overtime in that game. So it's a fascinating game to watch, that playoff game with the Cowboys, because there was so much history behind that series.
It was.
Montana was the 49 and Staubach, who had just retired 2 years earlier. Roger Staubach, one of his big comebacks was in Candlestick against the 49ers in the playoffs back in 71, I believe. So, yeah, it's a fascinating. If you ever get a chance or discussion of that game, it's a great, great watch. Not as much fun as the greatest game I ever saw, the 83 Chargers-Dolphins game in the Orange Bowl. That's my favorite. That's my all-time favorite non-Saints game is the 83 Chargers. 81. I'm sorry, 81, not 83. 81 Chargers-Dolphins.
We were living in Woodward, Oklahoma at the time, and when that game started, we had just gotten on and it was a 12-hour trip. And by the time we got deep into Oklahoma, and we were like maybe 2 or 3 hours out, that game was still going on, and we were listening to it on the radio.
I watched it on TV, and actually the greatest game I have ever watched in my entire life. The hook and lateral, you know, you were talking about Tony Nathan earlier.
Yeah.
Off the air, the hook and lateral Tony Nathan. I mean, it was just, I really wanted a 49ers Chargers play a Super Bowl that year. That was just going to be an incredible game, but of course, Ice Bowl 2 prevented the Chargers from advancing. The Bengals won instead. I can
Dan
still
Fouts
hear.
would have handed Joe Montana his only Super Bowl loss too, by the way.
That would have been a hell of a defense. But the Chargers' offense would have been a challenge. But I can still picture, you know, John Facenda, the football with the smoke going on Riverfront Stadium. 59 below zero. You know, it's
man. If I'm y'all, please forgive me, but you know, if I'm getting paid to do it, I walk out to that locker room. It's 59 below. Hell with it. Y'all can have it. I'm through. You know, I would look like Wile E. Coyote because they'd throw me the pass and I would catch it, get hit, and I would shatter. No, I'm done.
And the thing is too, when that ball, when a football gets in that kind of environment, it becomes like a brick, and that was part of the problem that Fouts had in that game. Was he couldn't throw a spiral. The ball would just wobble the whole time. You know, and for whatever reason, the Chargers Ken Anderson, it's an unbelievable game. All right, guys. All right, let's just wrap it up here. We're already starting to talk about football history long before most people in here were born, including this one right here.
Matt's sitting there going, I don't know what they're talking about. No, well,
he knows.
Matt,
he knows the 81 Chargers
household.
game.
I retract that statement. I retract that statement.
He knows that game. He knows that game because I've shown it to him several times.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time under the dome. Good night, everybody.
Love you guys.